Welcome to the Philippines, a land of endless adventure and breathtaking landscapes. From the pristine beaches of Boracay to the rolling chocolate hills of Bohol, meeting the friendly faces that make this country truly special. The Philippines offers something for every traveler. So pack your bags, hit subscribe, and get ready to fall in love with the Philippines. Welcome back, everyone. As you know, or if you don't, we have just spent the last month traveling around the Philippines. We learned a lot about the country in a very short period of time, and because it's fresh in our minds right now, we feel that it would be the perfect time to give you honest advice and insight on our travels through the Philippines. So buckle up and let's go. So the way that this video is going to go is we're going to start from our very first stop to our very last, and we're going to go through our recommendations on food, accommodation, the area that we stayed, and the activities that we did or wish we did do. We flew from Canada to New York City in America to South Korea, and then we flew into Cebu. Most people fly into Manila or Cebu. We ended up choosing Cebu. I don't know why.
It was honestly a bit cheaper. I think usually the Manila airport is like the main hub. Usually it's cheaper, but for us, for some reason, Cebu is cheaper. Our
first mistake, we do wish we went to Manila. A lot of people say that to skip Manila, it's just kind of like a fly in, fly out, but a lot of people say that about Bangkok too, and we love Bangkok. So our first regret was we wish that we had went to Manila.
I think Manila's like, it's not what people go to the Philippines for. People go for like the beaches and the islands and stuff. For us anyway, like those big cities get us really excited. It's worth spending, I would say, a few days there anyway. When you arrive in the Philippines, you're gonna wanna get your SIM card at the airport. Usually in the other Southeast Asian countries we've been to, it's way cheaper to go to a convenience store, usually the 7-Eleven, to get your SIM card. For some reason, the Philippines, I don't know if it's some sort of law that they have, but first of all, most of the 7-Elevens didn't even have SIM cards. But when they give you one, they just kind of hand you the SIM card, but they don't actually set it up on your phone. And then like to set it up, it was just, we found just a nightmare.
So starting in Cebu, we stayed in Cebu City, extremely close to Fort St. Pedro.
Our whole plan of staying there was because it was near all of the historical attractions, like Fort San Pedro, the Heritage of Cebu Monument.
To be honest, I wouldn't recommend staying in the area. We had kind of a bad experience there. It's a big city at the end of the day. The two things that you can do in Cebu City are Coron Street Night Market and Carbon Street Night Market. We didn't end up going to either of them. That kind of sucked. And another huge thing in Cebu is trying the lechon. We didn't end up trying lechon until some of our very last days. If you saw in my last video I posted, I believe it was, we had a horrible experience with lechon. So we regret not trying it. So if you're there, please try it for us. So after Cebu, we took a bus to Moalboal. That was actually a lot of fun. We took the local bus and it only cost us about $4 Canadian, and it took about 4-ish hours to get there. It was all open windows, no AC, wasn't that comfortable, but it was a great time.
You can either catch that bus at the South Cebu bus terminal, or what we did was we got told anyway that if you walk out to the main street, there's constantly buses driving by the main street and they have a sign to where they're headed. So you kind of have to find the one that is going to where you're going, and then you kind of just flag them down and they pull over, they run out, you hop on with your bags, and then you just hop on the bus, and then they have a guy on the bus that comes up and down and asks where you're going, and then they kind of punch little holes in your ticket and tell you how much that you owe, and then you kind of just wait until you get to your spot.
Now that we're mobile, we stayed at probably our favorite spot the whole trip.
Yeah,
we stayed at an Airbnb called Villa Alessandra. It was amazing. The people that owned it were incredible. It was in a perfect location.
It's on a mango farm right by the ocean, and they're actually doing a ton of upgrades to the property as we were there. So he said it would be done in about 3 months. So like they're doing a whole restaurant with a pool, and they have a walk to the beach and everything. So it's gonna be pretty awesome.
By the time you plan your trip, maybe it'll be done. So hopefully you guys can experience that too. Our Airbnb actually had transportation, so we just had to text or WhatsApp the person, and they would bring us from our Airbnb to the main strip that is called, I'm gonna pronounce it wrong, so I'm gonna give it to Kurt.
Peneg Sama Road or street, which is the main street that has all the hostels, all the restaurants, all the cafes. It's goes right down to the beach where you do the sardine run. That's kind of the main area of Moalboal, kind of the only touristy area of Moalboal.
The street was pretty lively. It did rain, I think 2 of the nights that we actually went out for dinner there.
I think both nights.
Yeah, I think both nights it rained, but one of the 2 restaurants that we went to were one of the better restaurants that we had in the Philippines. It was Western. I think that night we just wanted Western food. It was called 3 Bears. The food was incredible. The service was really good. It was actually a reasonable price for getting Western food in a foreign country. And then the next restaurant was called Zen's Kitchen. If you've watched other Philippines videos, you've probably already seen this being recommended because it's an incredible, authentic Filipino restaurant and it's got great prices. It's always busy. It's really good and I suggest you go in there.
The main activities to do in Moalboal is obviously the Khao Falls canyoneering is like the huge thing, probably the biggest activity to do in all of the Philippines. So we booked that through our Airbnb. Might not have been the best thing to do. I don't think we got booked through the best company that does it. There's tons of companies that do it, so it's kind of just the one that our Airbnb set us up with. But you might want to do some research and kind of look into which companies run the best tour, because ours was really short and it seemed like we didn't get as many jumps as some of the other tours that we'd noticed.
There was a lot of people even commenting on my Khao Falls video saying most of the tours should have been around 4.5 to 5 hours, because even in the description it said it was half a day and we finished at like 9:40.
Yeah, ours was only like 2 hours long.
We also paid a lot more. We ended up paying 2,700 pesos per person. And there was a lot of other companies that we were seeing were like 1,500 to 1,800 pesos per person. So I definitely would suggest doing your research, looking at reviews, watching videos. Make sure the one that you're choosing, you know what you're gonna get with it. And then another thing that you do in Moalboal is the sardine run. We didn't have as many days in Moalboal and the weather was super crappy when we were there, so we ended up skipping this. That's another regret that we wish we had have done.
You just swim in just off the shore, and I think you get about 20-30 feet out and you just hit a wall of sardine, and then you can swim and they kind of spread apart as you swim through and stuff. It looks really cool. You can also see some sea turtles there if you're really lucky. Once in a while I've seen videos of people seeing sea turtles swimming along, so that would be awesome too.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Another thing that people do is swimming with the whale shark in Oslob. And if you decide you want to do that after doing the research, that's totally up to you, but we've done a ton of research that it was not ethical.
As you know, Taylor's an animal lover, so she's not doing anything unethical, let me tell you.
No, so just make sure you do your research before you go to do any activity that involves animals. So from Moalboal, we took a bus back to Cebu and then we flew to Coron. Most people would actually go to Bohol or Siquijor from Moalboal, but the weather was so horrible on that side of the country. During the time that we were there, we really just figured it was best for us, because we had such a short period of time in the country, to head to the sunshine to be able to actually see the beautiful beaches of the Philippines in really nice weather and get out of the crappy rain. When we got to Coron, we ended up staying in Coron town, which is super close to Coron Bay Harbor, and it was actually really convenient because it was in such walking distance to everywhere that we wanted to go. There was a lot of cafes and restaurants. I just want to tell you, when you're going to Coron, you're going to be spending a lot more money than you would expect. If you're going to the Philippines, you're probably going to do an island tour. Most of the people, when they do an island tour, they go to El Nido or Coron to do them. We ended up going to Coron because we figured that it would be a little bit less busy doing it there, and it ended up being around the same price. They all go to relatively the same looking places, so we just figured we would do it in Coron. I think it was a lot less busy than the ones in El Nido.
I mean, it's still really busy.
Yeah, it was still so busy, but it was so nice. It was pricey. We did the ultimate tour package, which was a bit of all of them combined, plus 2 extra islands.
2 extra stops, I think. If you are with a group, or if you're at a hostel or something and you can get a group of people together, I would recommend booking the private tours, just because I think they go out a little earlier and they kind of know the route of all the tour groups, and when you hit these places on a private tour, there are a lot less people. So if you can get the private tour, then I would recommend that, but it is pricey, so if you can't, then the tours are still really good.
Another huge thing when you're in Coron is hiking the viewpoint. It's like the Hollywood sign of Coron. Hiking the Coron viewpoint was actually really nice. We went in the dead middle of the day. Probably not great for our sunstroke.
Yeah, it's very hot.
But going during the middle of the day, there was one other person there with us. It was so empty, but most people go for sunset where it's going to be so much more packed. Probably a little bit prettier because of the sun setting behind all the mountains in the background. But I think it's so cool to be able to see over top of the whole town.
And then later that night, after we did the viewpoint during the day, we finished it off with a little trip to the hot springs. It's one of the only saltwater hot springs in the world. I'm not sure exactly how many there are, but we did learn that it was one of the only ones. About a 20-minute ride from town to the hot springs in a tricycle. It's really the only way to get there unless you rent a motorbike, but the roads are pretty rough. So unless you're experienced, I wouldn't recommend riding the bike.
No.
Yeah, we just kind of relaxed there at night, let our muscles heal. The water there's super hot. I think it's like, what, 100 degrees?
Yeah.
It's up to about 100 degrees, so yeah, it's really hot.
Don't go in the day. It would be so hot. It would be so unenjoyable. But at nighttime, they have lights hung in all of the trees. And the water, we actually got there at sunset, so we could see through the water, and it was so crystal clear. When you're going at nighttime, just be prepared for the crowds. From Coron, we took a ferry to El Nido, which I think most of the time if you're starting in Coron before El Nido, that's how you're gonna get there. I believe you can fly. Flying through the Philippines is expensive, especially if you don't book early.
If you're flying, you might want to plan ahead and book, I'd say, at least 2 to 3 weeks in advance.
Yeah, so we took a ferry from Coron to El Nido, but there's actually a more interesting way to do it. You can actually do an expedition, so it's either a 3-day 2-night, a 4-day 3-night, etc. And you are on a boat for that long. You stay at a different island each night, and you visit so many islands that none of the tours would visit. The most popular one is called Tao Expeditions. It is pricey, so we didn't get to do it. It was out of our price range, but if it's in yours, I would recommend doing that. There is also other options. I've seen in a bunch of other people's videos that you can, if you search around El Nido or Coron, there is other places that sell cheaper tours. Tao is just the biggest name. People want to go with them because they're the most reputable, but do your research. There is cheaper options that provide pretty much the exact same experience. When we got to El Nido, you get off the ferry and there's instantly thousands of tricycles waiting for you to take you to your hostel or Airbnb, whatever you're staying in. So we ended up staying at the Continental Hostel in El Nido. It's about 15-minute walk from the main area of El Nido, and it's a very new hostel. They were still putting up the sign and everything when we were there. I actually enjoyed this place. They had a great lobby or common area. It was a restaurant. They served really good breakfast and it was cheap. The day that we left, they started serving dinner. So kind of sucked for us, but still it looks really good. The rooms were nice. Showers, bathroom, everything was good.
I think the two main ones are Outpost and Mad Monkey.
Oh, yeah.
Mad Monkey is way over on Nacpan Beach, but Outpost is probably, like, you could stay there too, but
it was expensive when we were looking too.
It's more expensive, and it books up pretty fast, I think. So you have to book pretty far in advance. But I would recommend Continental Hostel. It was really clean, really nice. We had no problems with it at all.
As I said before, it's a 15-minute walk from the main area of El Nido, but it is also only about a 5-minute walk from Coron Beach. We ended up finding a guy. We rented a kayak from him for about 500 pesos, which we kind of figured later we got ripped off again because
Classic. We
took it to Lapis Beach. I could be saying that wrong. And Papaya Beach. That was one of my favorite days in the Philippines. It was so quiet. There was no boat tours going there. It was literally, there was probably 5 other people on the beach, but they had kayaks, so everything was quiet. The first beach, which was Lapis Beach, there's lots of dogs on it. Like the puppies are like this big. So, and they're very skinny, like a lot of the street dogs in the Philippines, but there's a family that actually lives on the island. They're super friendly to everyone coming there. They stay kind of at their house. Everyone kind of respects their area and nobody really went down there. If you're going to the beach, just bring food for the dogs.
Yeah.
Super cheap to buy. Just buy cans of little tuna packs and rice or whatever you want, really.
It's only like a 15-minute kayak too from Coron Beach, so It's not, and the water was really calm. You kind of stay close to the shore, so it's not a hard kayak by any means.
Another huge thing that people do when they go to El Nido is go to Nacpan Beach. Is one of the nicest beaches we've ever been to.
Probably the nicest.
Probably, yeah. Like a lot of people that we've seen, it is apparently one of the nicest public beaches on Palawan. We rented a scooter from the main area in El Nido and took about, what was it, like 2 hours, you think?
Probably about an hour and a half, I'd say.
Drive to Nacpan. The ride was incredible. The roads were perfect.
We're not experienced anyway. Well, we did the one trip in Vietnam, but other than that, we haven't really rode motorbikes anywhere. So the roads are really calm. There's not a ton of traffic, so it's a good introduction into kind of figuring out the motorbike.
You can rent chairs there for extremely overpriced. We did it.
Instead of laying on the sand was so hot.
Yeah.
You might as well rent a chair, and you're there all day, so it's worth it. There's also a few waterfalls I think you can stop at around Nacpan Beach. We didn't end up doing that because we spent all day at Nacpan, but if you want to do that too, there's a couple waterfalls on that bike trip that you can stop at. The other main beach in El Nido is called Vanilla Beach. I think that's the nickname for it, and I'm not sure what the Filipino name for it is, but there's a big Vanilla Beach sign out. Nice walkway. There's a couple resorts there, some cool restaurants. It's a pretty vibesy area.
It is. Everything, yeah, it's super like bohemian style.
Yeah.
You see the golden arches right when you get there, so that was a nice sign too after a day at the beach.
There's also a zip line you can do there that takes you from Vanilla Beach across to a small island. It's a pretty cool, we didn't do it, but it's a cool activity if you're into that. Heading
back to the main area in El Nido, it is flooded with really, really good food.
Any kind of cuisine you can think of, they have it. Two of the main, kind of the cool little dinner spots we went, they're like these little, I wouldn't call them street food, but they're these kind of little hole-in-the-wall places where we got fried chicken burgers and hamburgers, which surprisingly were like incredible. Like,
so good.
I obviously looked up the reviews before we went there, or else we wouldn't have went there, but yeah, it was incredible. A place called Munch Island, which is right on the beach. I think two nights later we went to Foulmouth, which was a little bit farther down off the main street, but the same kind of thing, just a little hole in the wall, and this nice lady in there, we had incredible chicken burgers there. We met a nice couple from the States while we were there too, and we kind of chatted with them. It was a good night. There was one street there by the school that had some street vendors. We didn't see it till after we just ate dinner, so we kind of missed out on that. But there is a few little street vendors around there, which there isn't a ton of in Philippines places that we went to besides Cebu and Manila, obviously. I think we spent 4 days in El Nido, caught a bus from El Nido, which the bus stop was actually right beside Continental Hostel, so that was extremely convenient. So I think the bus, we hopped on at 8 a.m. We took about a 4-hour Sprinter van ride from El Nido to Port Barton, which is honestly like a hidden gem of the Philippines. This place was awesome.
Now that we're in Port Barton, we stayed there for 3 nights and 4 days. I probably could have stayed there longer. There wasn't much to do, but it was just so quaint and quiet.
Stayed at a place called Pisces Tourist Inn, which was a family run. It wasn't a hotel, it was like each person had their own little cabins. Breakfast was included, and the breakfast was phenomenal. Another place you can stay there, which is probably the most popular spot for backpackers, is called Coco Rico Hostel. It's like a party hostel. They have a restaurant there. It's free drinks there from 7 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. There's not too many spots to kind of party in town, and that's probably the main one.
There were so many restaurants and authentic. You didn't find that many Western places to eat there, which I liked because it gave us a huge variety of Filipino food.
And also coming from Coron and El Nido, where the food was extremely expensive, Port Barton was a lot cheaper, so that was a kind of a relief for us after spending so much on food for the last week probably.
There's 2 places you could stay in Port Barton, so it's St. Vincent, I think I'm saying it right, and Port Barton City, town?
Port Barton town and St. Vincent.
Yeah, we ended up staying in the town, and it was so nice. We were about a 2-minute walk. We were actually on the same street as the beach, and we ended up getting a private boat from the beach to There's two beaches you can go to, which is Coconut Beach and White Beach. I definitely recommend doing that if you're there, because it's probably one of the things that you are going to end up doing while you're in Port Barton. There's honestly not much to do besides kind of relax, go to the beach.
The beach in town isn't the nicest beach. There's tons of boats and stuff on it. You can't really swim in it, but it's only a 15-minute little boat ride to Coconut Beach or White Beach, which White Beach was like an awesome beach. There's tons of coconut trees that line the beach. It's a really cool spot. There's also an island hopping tour you can do, which we were planning on doing the day after we went to White Beach, but we got so burnt there that we were kind of hiding from the sun the next day, so we did miss out on that.
Yeah.
But if you're there, I would recommend it. You can swim with sea turtles and you go to Starfish Island, which would be really cool.
After Port Barton, we went down to Puerto Princesa, which is a town or city that usually is kind of like a stopover or layover when you're coming from each of the islands. You stay there for maybe a night and then they head up to Port Barton, or they head out to Cebu or wherever else they're going. We only stayed there for...
I think we stayed 2 nights. You probably only have to stay 1 night, to be honest.
Yeah. We were lucky that our hotel was really nice. We stayed at Southwind, which was right across kind of from Robinson Mall, if you know where that is. We only went downtown once.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's really a downtown. There is down by the pier, which is a pretty cool area actually. They have all these like little food and drink little shops and stuff that you can go to, and it's super cheap.
From Puerto Princesa, we actually got a flight out of there to Boracay. Traveling from Puerto Princesa to Boracay was actually a huge travel day. We ended up flying to Cebu first, and then we had another flight to Malay, I believe it's called. We had to get a tricycle to the ferry port. We had to get a ferry to Boracay, and then we had to get another tricycle to our hotel, which we actually stayed in New Coast, which is a new area on Boracay. I would recommend staying there. If you want to be in the party backpacker scene, I would probably recommend staying in Station 2.
Yeah, Station 2 is kind of the backpacker budget traveler area, and then Station 1 I believe is more of the nicer resorts and stuff. Boracay is a really small island. They don't actually have an airport on it, so if you're going there, you have to fly into Malay, which is what we did, and then you take the ferry across.
The Belmont and the Savoy kind of are like a partner. Wherever they are, they're always beside each other, and they usually have like, if one uses the other one's pool, vice versa. So when we stayed in Boracay, we actually stayed in the Belmont. We got it for a really good deal because, like we said earlier, we were booking far in advance. So we ended up getting breakfast included. We got a beautiful room. The whole area of Station 0 and New Coast of Boracay are roughly the same thing. So it was all so brand new. A lot of the things were not even built up. It was so nice, and it felt safe being there. If you were in one of the rooms on the far side of our hotel, you could actually see the keyhole rock from that room, which is another big thing that you would do in Boracay. A little overhyped in my opinion.
I wouldn't do it if you're staying in Station 2 or Station 1, but since we were in New Coast, it was we walked there. It's not far. We also had a free shuttle from our hotel down to Station 2, which was super convenient because the food at the hotels are insanely expensive. One
of the places that you will probably and most likely go to if you're on Boracay is called Coco Mama. It's one of the famous coconut ice creams in Boracay. To me, it was overrated. I've had better coconut ice cream for a lot cheaper. When you go there, you gotta try the Coco Mama ice cream. Another place that we went is called Mr. D's Pizza. Incredible pizza.
Actually, we got the chicken wings there too, and they were actually really good.
Yeah, you won't find it. You actually have to Google it because it's down a really small side street off the main road. Just Google it. It's so good, and it's very reasonably priced.
A couple things to do in Boracay. Obviously, White Beach is the main thing. It's a 4-kilometer long beach that all the resorts kind of back onto in Station 1 and Station 2. But a couple activities you can do. On the White Beach, they do a lot of sailing. And then on Moalboal Beach, which is opposite to White Beach, only like a 5-minute walk, they do a ton of kite surfing there. So I think the wind is coming from the east side during that time of year anyway when we were there, and like there was hundreds of kite surfers out there. It
was so cool to see. There was so many. The tricycles are really expensive anywhere. If you're taking taxis or tricycles or any transportation that isn't already a set price, try and bargain. They're going to charge you double of what they're going to take, if not more.
Especially like people on our videos were telling us on every video that we were getting overcharged for the tricycles. So yeah, I would recommend bargaining first of all, and then try and cut it like at least in half, and then see where you go from there.
Yeah. So from Boracay, our next destination was actually Bohol, but we had a layover in Cebu City. So we kind of thought, let's stay in a different area than we did the last time when we stayed in Cebu. So we actually stayed on Mactan Island, which definitely stay there. If you're gonna go to Cebu, you're probably gonna be at the airport or leave from the airport. Stay on Mactan Island. It's so much nicer. We stayed in Newtown, which again, we ended up staying in the Savoy instead of the Belmont this time. So nice. There was so many things around. It was a lot more touristy. So there was like a McDonald's, a Starbucks, a Dunkin'. Then there was a little alfresco.
Yeah, it was called Mactan Alfresco, I guess, which was like, it was like a food court kind of, but like of all local cuisine, really cheap, super nice area. All the locals were going there.
We took a few-hour ferry from Cebu to Bohol, and we ended up staying in Panglao Island. It's a more touristy area than staying on the main island of Bohol, but I really enjoyed staying in Panglao. Where we stayed was called Bohol Sea Resort. It was super quiet. It was a really long driveway. Bohol is really famous for diving, and actually at our hotel there was a huge diving center.
Yeah, we stayed near Alona Beach, which is like the nicest beach probably on all of Bohol, but at least in the Panglao area. It's the main touristy area, so there's tons going on down there. There's tons of restaurants, tons of cafes. Like, that's where it's all happening. There's tons of people down there. So
while we were on Bohol, we ended up doing the Chocolate Hills and the Tarsiers. Most people go to Bohol for that also, along with the scuba diving. Go to the Tarsiers and the Chocolate Hills. They are both so touristy, but the Tarsiers, I don't know if you'll ever see them again because they are so native to the Philippines, and there's only certain places in the world that still have them, and it was so cool to be able to see them.
To do the Chocolate Hills and the Tarsiers, you have to rent a motorbike. So right by our resort, actually, there was a little family motorbike shop. We rented a motorbike just for the day for
400?
I think 400 pesos for the day. Might be a little expensive, but
we got charged more in El Nido for 6 hours.
Yeah, and then Chocolate Hills and the Tarsier Sanctuary, it's a pretty far drive, so you're gonna be on the motorbike for most of the day. I think we were pretty much on it all day.
Yeah.
Awesome ride though. Like, you kind of go through these little jungle areas, through these little villages. Super like easy, no traffic once you get out of the main little town of where Alona Beach is.
And taking a motorbike anywhere, like I've said before and I'll say it again, do the motorbike. It is so much better than taking a grab car, taking a taxi, taking a tricycle. It's so fun and it's so freeing to be able to do anything at any point that you want. Bohol was honestly one of my favorite spots in the Philippines. After Bohol, we flew back to Cebu, and that was actually our very last day in the Philippines. One thing, if you're going to the Philippines, I would suggest doing that we didn't end up getting to do was Balabac Island. It is supposed to be one of the most beautiful islands in the Philippines. It's so secluded, which means it's not as touristy yet. Not that many tourists go there because, again, it is pricier. It's on the Palawan side. It's at the very bottom of Palawan Island.
Yeah, you can stay there. It's really remote, but from what I've seen, that they have like these little huts you can stay in. I don't know if there's a ton of electricity and stuff like that on the island yet. I know they are building a hotel there. I don't know if that's started yet. You pretty much, if you're on this island, you have these beautiful beaches all to yourself. And then they do little island tours from there. It's like a 3-4 day thing where you do all these island hopping. And from what we've seen, it's an incredible thing to do.
The Philippines was an absolutely incredible month. And we already know that we want to go back and see places that we missed. We have a few stops before we head back to the Philippines in Southeast Asia.
All in all, Philippines was an incredible country. I would highly recommend going there. People in the Philippines are some of the most friendly, happy people that we've ever met anywhere in the world.
They are so willing to help you. If you are in need of anything, anybody will help you. Another good thing is a lot of them speak English too. So if there's anything, they will know how to communicate with you, and if they don't, they will find someone else that knows how to. It's a great country. It's a beautiful country, beautiful beaches, amazing people, and I would suggest going to visit the Philippines. I hope that you guys could take some tips and advice from us in this video. If you have any other questions, just comment down below. I will be sure to answer them in any way that I can help. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next video.
Ciao.